What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live from a waterlogged Site B here on a rainy Friday afternoon. It is March 10th, 2023. It is raining here at Site B, and Steve the cat is looking out the window because he does not like the rain. And it makes me cold and mopey. So, yeah, we're going to make this kind of quick because who knows, we might lose power because rain. It's Friday. So it's time to take a breather, let all the stress of this week rush away in this rain, and focus on what teeny bits and bops of news we might have missed during the week where we were focusing on D&D Beyond and the characters. Of course, we do have some news about that too, and we have some more news about the Creative Commons thing. But first, we have the list of releases for Nebula Award winners for Best Game Writing. Now, remember, this was a relatively new category, the Nebula Awards, introduced last year, and Thirsty Sword Lesbians won it, which received a lot of flack because, let's face it, Thirsty Sword Lesbians is a powder keg of controversy. Whether the creators ever intended it to be or not, we'll never know, but it is now, so good on you. So they have released this year's nominees, and Journey to the Radiant Citadel is nominated for it, which is unusual because the writing in Journey to the Radiant Citadel is abysmally bad, and every review of it has been pretty much awful. So what's up with that? Now, to add further to that is that the mishmash of stuff nominated this year doesn't really reflect the nominees we saw last year. Nominees last year pretty much were mostly RPGs, tabletop RPGs that were being nominated and recognized by the Nebula Awards for their excellent writing. But then Thirsty Sword Lesbians won because it was a political powder keg, and if it didn't win, the Nebula Awards would have been accused of being racist. So they kind of had no choice, or sexist, or homophobic, or whatever. So this year's we have Journeys to the Radiant Citadel from Wizards of the Coast, which unusual choice, consider it's, how awfully it was received. Elden Ring, which apparently George R.R. Martin worked on. Did you know George R.R. Martin worked on Elden Ring? I did not know that. Elden Ring, of course, being a video game. So why is it being nominated for Best Game Writing? Then we have Horizons Forbidden West from Sony Interactive, also a video game. Then we have Pentiment from Obsidian Entertainment and Xbox, also a video game. Then we have Stray, which is an amazing video game about a lost cat, but still a video game. And finally, we have Vampire the Masquerades. And before you get excited and think, oh, that's the video game Vampire the Masquerades, and then you remind yourself, wait, there's like 8 different companies making Vampire the Masquerade stuff, so which one? No, it's Sins of the Sires by Natalie from Paradox. So, yeah, it is one of the was one of the supplement modules made by Paradox this year for Vampire. So, one role-playing game adventure, and 1, 2, 3, 4 video games. So, I guess video games are now included in Best Game Writing. I'm not familiar enough with most of these to say whether the writing on them is excellent, but if Journey Through the Radiant Citadel is the benchmark, then yeah, obviously their choices are what counts as best writing in a video for game writing for our hobby. Obviously, the judgment isn't high. And you can't go by last year because, again, last year's winner was Thirsty Swords Lesbian. And there's no way Thirsty Swords Lesbian was going to lose that, because if it didn't, people would say the Nebula Awards were homophobic and transphobic. So they kind of had to win. Now, this year, thankfully, there's no politics attached to any of these. If we're comparing the writing on Stray and Elden Ring, the only two I'm kind of familiar with, to Journeys Through Radiant Citadel, well, Stray is being considered one of the best video games of the year, so I think I'd go to Stray. Though I would rather have seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 role-playing games actually all nominated, and the writing for the role-playing games being considered, but just mashing video games and role-playing games together and role-playing supplements, well, kind of takes away any legitimacy the Nebula Award might have had. Of course, the big complaint everybody had last year was that there's really no legitimacy to that anyways, so it's sort of pointless. And then, thirst whatever, blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the next story that seems to be dominating, and it is, hey, Cal, my girl, Kelsey, and Arcane Library and Shadowdark. Everybody and their dog has jumped on the Shadowdark RPG bandwagon and is definitely dividing the RPG community much greater than I think anybody ever expected. You have the people who have like, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then on the other side, you have, this is horrible, this is awful, how dare you create this product, you awful human being crowd. She has received multiple insults and negative comments and sexist comments and just ugly, some really ugly things. And she's received a lot of positive stuff too. And the game has far surpassed any expectations we might have had of how much money it would have made on Kickstarter. Getting funded for initial, yeah, kind of expected it to at least get funded for initial, but it's getting close to being in the $1 million club. So yeah. Now, is it worth the hype? Well, I don't know, because all I've seen is the Quickstarter rules and what Hank and Ben got to review. Now, some people are saying, well, that's the finished product. What she's kickstarting is just BS. She's already got it made. It's like, no, it's not finished, because if you look at the pledge marks, she literally just said yesterday she has to rewrite stuff because she's adding a new class. So you can't judge the finished product by the quick start rules. Anybody who's ever looked at quick start rules and a finished product, or a playtest version and a finished product, or a review copy and a finished copy would know that. But a lot of people are going, oh, well, the quick start rules it just shows how great this is, or, oh, the quick start rules show how awful this is. And, oh, I'm going to review the quick start rules. And I'm like, no, don't. Wait till you see the finished product, because it will be completely different than the quick start rules. And the review copy that Hank and Ben got, that people are saying, well, she's already finished it, the Kickstarter is BS. Well, no, that's a review copy, which means it's not complete. And if you don't believe it's not complete, you can just go to the Arcane Library and see her publisher's vlog, where she talks about that because she hit a stretch goal, she's adding new stuff. So when it goes to print at the end of the Kickstarter, it will include all the new post stuff in either the new book or the first supplement. So no, it is not finished. So I will not review it until I see my finished copy in my hands. Is it worth the positive remarks? Is it worth the negative remarks? Is it worth talking about at all? Will it be tabletop role-playing game of the year and be the bench, the bridge that we need to bring the 5e crowd and the OSR crowd together? Or will it be another forgettable game that we won't be talking about a year from now? I don't know. I mean, everybody who knows that I supported her has said that I was a simping for her, and I'm a white knighting for her, I'm hot for her. And I'm like, I've been a fan of her product for like 5 years. Like, one of the very first RPG products I ever reviewed on Site A was stuff from her. So yeah, I knew she was going to do this long before the announcement. And like a year ago, I was like, when you kickstart this, I'll support it. Moving on to the third story. And of course, the third story is the Creative Commons announcement and what Wizards of the Coast has got planned for the future of our hobby. And this, the stat block for the Thieves Gallery is getting way more attention than I ever thought it would be. At least it comes up at least 5 times a day, every day since it was first announced. Now, the initial story, of course, speaking about this is why do it this way? And it's 2 parts to that question. First, my latest information, both from my person who works at Wizards of the Coast and other people who are still getting announcements from D&D Beyond, was this information was on the system for a while, but they didn't tell anybody about it till Monday, late Monday. They could have said on Friday the 4th, Monday the 6th, we're going to be putting up the stat block. Right now it's hidden behind a wall, computer magic stuff the OGGM doesn't understand, but bam, it's out there. But they didn't. Now, one person who's still on the mailing list sent me a mailing list, and he's like, yeah, I think they sent me something on Thursday about it, but it didn't really sound important, so I didn't really read it. And then my friend who works at Wizards was like, no, this stuff was up, late Thursday night. I don't know why we didn't tell anybody about it. Hi, Cal. So, yeah. Now, the second question of why do they do it this way is how completely different the stat block looks for the characters on the website to anything we've seen before. Now, there's been some people who are more aware of the changes to the stat blocks than I am, who have said, no, this is what the stat blocks look like now in the latest Munster stuff. Like, what was the latest Munster stuff? I don't know. I guess Keys now would be the last official product that has Munster stat blocks in it. The stat block, the way we see the characters presented in this thing is same as the way they're presented in the most recent product, post Tasha, post Xanthers, post multiverse of monsters. Except, of course, it's not, because if you go and look at the most recently published Wizards of the Coast product, which is one of the expansion adventures for Keys to the Golden Vault, Prisoner 13, which came out pretty much the same day this came out, stat block's completely different. So this stat block is only unique to these characters like this. So why present them like this? And why with such unusual numbers and abilities that they couldn't normally have? A lot of people are hemming and hawing about this. A lot of people are complaining about this. A lot of people are like, I don't fucking care about this. Most of the complaints, most of the people who are curious and upset and about this are 5e people, 5e fans, people who are like, wait, what's going on? Why did you completely change everything? I don't know if I like this. So it could just have been an example of laziness, make the stat blocks so they most resemble the characters in the movie, even if that gives them, an outrageous abilities and unusual hat points because reasons. Why does this character have 138 hit points? Because her character's so tough in the movie. Well, that's sort of a pointless reference because it's the movie. We don't know how many hit points or how tough anything in the movie is. So therefore we can't judge, she could have, Michelle Rodriguez's character could have 4 hit points, but if she's in a world where everybody else has 2, then yeah, of course she's tougher than everybody else. It's a movie. Just giving the Paladin 180 hit points doesn't express the fact that, he's a much more experienced whatever. Movie physics and D&D stats don't cross-pollinate. So laziness to try and give the stat blocks to resemble the special effects and resemble the abilities in the movie. Maybe it's a thin explanation, but yeah, okay. Now, the other more slightly suspicious and perhaps diabolical method is, could Wizards of the Coast be doing something that I suggested they do years ago? And that is present something completely different as an experiment, i.e. this new stat block and this new everybody's a medium humanoid and you just pick and choose, which is sort of, I guess, the ultimate evolution of what they first suggested in Tasha's. Could this be them testing the waters to see if players respond favorably? Because if players respond favorably to this new everybody's a D8 medium humanoid, you start as a first level medium humanoid, and then you get to pick and choose packages to build the character you want, which seems to be what they did with this here. If then they could say a month from now, when round 5 of the playtest, did you guys like the stat block? What do you think about it? What do you think about this change? And if people universally say, yes, I loved the way you presented this, I love the idea it perpetuates, I love the GURPS-like aspect, Wizards of the Coast can go, well, what do you would think if we made that the official build for 6th edition? And then people would either go, yes, that's a great idea, or no, that's stupid, I like it the way it is. And if people say, no, I didn't like the stat block, I don't really know why you did that a month from now, Wizards of the Coast can simply say, well, it was an experiment. It was specifically for this advertising campaign. You're never going to see that again. Going forward, we're going to continue to use what you guys are familiar with once we finish the playtest for 6th edition in 2024. See? Now, this is something I have said over and over again Wizards of the Coast should have done. Fuck it. This is what Wizards of the Coast should have done with 4th edition, right? Release an experiment, see how people respond to the experiment, and if they respond favorably, ask them if they want those to be the rules. That's what you should have done with 4th. That's what you should have been doing with 6th. So maybe this is their way of testing the waters of turning D&D into GURPS. Here's your character. It's a 1d8 medium humanoid, CR1. You have this many feats, points, whatever, to build your character. If you want to build a classic character, you could, like an elf, by the book elf, well, that's 2 points out of 10. If you want to build a pick and choose human, but who has a few special abilities from each different thing, 3 or 4 points for this, 3 or 4 points for that. It's cheaper to buy the package deals, but then you could also pick and choose. If they could make that and make that a simple way that is way more understandable than some of the other games that do the exact same thing, that'd be brilliant. It wouldn't be D&D, but that's okay, because I think we all agree on some level 6E is not going to be D&D other than in name, which is fine. They can call it whatever they want. They own the name. We could either accept it's D&D or not accept it's D&D. We all have our own interpretation of what we think D&D is. Hasbro's going to make the most Hasbro D&D they can make to make the most money off of D&D they can do. The old guard like us be damned. And even if a large portion of the 5e fans don't appreciate it, they still think they're going to make enough money that the changes are worthwhile. Of course, a large portion of the 5e fans are not happy with this, but we'll see in a month from now. D8 medium humanoid, pick and choose. If you want to be a by-the-book classic elf, that's 5 out of 10 points. But, of course, it comes with all these sorts of already built-in things. Yeah, that's, on paper, a good system initially. But then GURPS and all those other systems that do that initially work on paper. But it's not D&D. So is it an insidious experiment? Or is it just simply an example of the laziness that is Wizards of the Coast? Also, is this a hint of what things are going to look like when the inevitable, it's going to happen, stop saying it's not. Anybody who still thinks this isn't going to happen is living in a dream world. Digital conversion, is this how they're going to look when we all are uploaded to the Wizards of the Coast virtual tabletop? Interesting. Curiouser and curiouser. And finally, of course, we have the Wizards of the Coast with their new content changes and announcing the creation of this brand new creative community consultant division, or whatever they're calling it. Basically, the 1984 thought police that they are now introducing to Wizards of the Coast. These are the people that will be presenting to the chosen YouTubers, the chosen community content individuals, the information that Wizards of the Coast wants them to say going forward. So Ginny D, since apparently she has decided to bend the knee, and Bob Worldbuilder and Mark Holmes and all these other people who are, who are like, oh, we're so angry at you and we can't believe you are doing this during the OGL Manic Panic. We're now saying, oh, we love and forgive you, Wizards of the Coast, and who have all been invited to this little indoctrination thing, are going to now have to deal with these individuals. And these individuals are going to be the ones that are presenting them with the news that the Wizards of the Coast wants you to hear, along with a lot of the major news sources. Am I going to be invited to this thing? Am I going to talk to these people? Is Tanker going to talk to these people? Is Venger going to talk to these people? Or any of the other people out there who actually gives you truthful, non-biased role-playing news gonna be invited to this? No, we're not. because we see Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro for what they are. But, but people who who have been pro Wizards of the Coast cheerleaders, even during the January trash fire, they're going to be the invited ones. They're going to be the ones who are going to be dealing with these, cultural, creative, community consultants. Let's call them what they are. They're the Wizards of the Coast thought police. They're the Wizards of the Coast handlers. They're the people who are now telling Kyle Bank what to say and think and react to the questions for these interviews. They're the ones who are now presenting us with this new form of homogenous, this is the D&D we think you want thing. Which will be interesting to see how the D&D stories we get are shaped now that they have admitted this. I will call them out on, of course, their inclusion thing. What's the biggest thing for the past couple of months been from them? We want to be more inclusive. We want to avoid the problematic issues of the past for our hobby. And now we're going to look at everything pre-existing 5e, all the other stuff, and see if we can bring it into the new sanitized Creative Commons. Obviously, we're going to have to scrub that stuff for anything that might be problematic or offensive. So all that old stuff, Temple of the Frog, Vault of the Drow, Isle of Dread, Slave Lords, that's going to go through the grinder and come out in the brand new, approachable, non-problematic, sanitized way. Right? Okay. But that's okay, because it'll be under the new SRD and it'll be protected and they won't be able to change it, even though we've already found out that, yeah, actually they can, because they didn't put it under the right Creative Commons. And they're already talking about releasing their own inner workings political novel of how they, want to be approachable and what people have to follow to make official product. And they've already said, well, we want to protect our copyrighted characters and our copyrighted IP. And then, of course, if you look at the SRD, there's copyrighted characters in there. Was that a mistake? Or did they do it on purpose? It's going to be interesting. I said at the start of the year, even before the OGL disaster, that hold on to your hats. Whatever it is Wizards of the Coast is going to do this year, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And, we're looking at all these things, and on the surface, these all look good. I see they've made the mistake. My favorite, we're coming back to conventions. We're coming back to relate to the community. You never left. You never left the community. Just look at the most recent Magic the Gathering Friday Night Magic tournament debacle in Virginia. You've never left the community. You've been at conventions. You've been doing Magic the Gathering. You've been doing Adventurers League. You've been selling crap. You're there, dudes. You just haven't been as omnipresent as perhaps in the past. But you can't say, oh, look at the Honor Amongst Thieves media squirm and look at all the interviews and look at all the talks we've been having it, and then also say, well, we haven't been in community events, but we're going back. What the fuck do you call Magic the Gathering, Friday Night Magic, and Adventurers League if you haven't been at the community events? Anyways, that's about it. I am the OGGM. If you appreciate this news, let me know. If you have any comment or insight, let me know. And till next time, please like, please share, please subscribe. Please support the OGGM adventures. We've got some comments. They don't understand their own IP. Of course they don't. These aren't people who know the IP. They're outsiders tinkering with it and don't know it. That's true. They are motivated by profits. Nothing they are doing makes me think they're motivated by profits. As, somebody who's worked in both versions of the industry. I'm not worried about D&D anymore. I just like to be informed. Yeah, Cat Monroe, superhero. When I'm doing my daily superhero write-up, I should do a write-up for Cat. What are Cat Monroe's superhero stats, powers, abilities? It's a mystery. We'll never know. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Please head on over to Big Geek Emporium if you haven't yet. I'm looking at you, Cal and Mar and Cat Monroe. And check out my merch, $2 a piece. 8 currently available, plus 2 levels of my Dungeon 23 Mega Dungeon. All available, all awesome. The rain is really coming down now, so I'm going to cut it off here in case we lose power. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you later.